everyone. Shalom, friends. This is Mayim Vega. Welcome to the Arukah Holistic Podcast. And today we're diving into powerful stories and insights that will inspire you to think outside the box when it comes to your health journey. Are you ready to challenge the way you think about health and healing? At Arukah.com, we're on a mission to empower you to transform your life through holistic health. And today I am very excited to introduce to you Lenny Gallo, author of Unstill. And I'll just go ahead and jump in. And hello, welcome, first of all.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate being here.
All right. Let me see if I can stop sharing my screen now. All right. Lenny, if we could just start. I know you're a very interesting man, which is why I wanted to interview you today. Could you just start out by telling people a little bit about who you are, what your background is, and why you do what you do?
Sure. Um, so I am a therapist first and foremost. Um, I practice mostly virtually these days ever since the pandemic. But my specialties are in trauma, OCD, anxiety disorders. Um, and when I'm not doing my therapy practice, I'm also an artist and I do a lot of fine art, everything all over the place from experimental to still life and everything in between. Um, and I just obviously, as you mentioned, I published a book recently. So it's a memoir, Unstill. And it's about the journey that I sort of undertook with going through a medication-induced movement disorder. And so I was hoping to help educate your audience on what those are and help people understand a little bit more about medication in the realm of mental health.
Yes, absolutely. So please let us know, what are medication-induced movement disorders and what causes them, and what should the general public be on the lookout for?
Okay. Well, medication-induced movement disorders, I guess it's probably best to first start out with movement disorders. So if we think of a movement disorder is really an involuntary loss of function in our body. And so, what ultimately ends up happening is if you think of something like Parkinson's, for example, right, you lose the ability to sort of like sit still, things of that nature. There are certain medications on the market, specifically in the mental health realm, that can cause movement disorders. And so, the two big ones that I discuss in my book on Still is tardive dyskinesia and akathisia, which is something I unfortunately have had the uh, well, I won't call it the pleasure of getting to know, but I've gotten to understand through my own journey with my own mental health. And so, um, the big thing I would like to just let people know is that some medications can cause these disorders, and oftentimes they go very much unrecognized and underdiagnosed. And so a lot of people don't oftentimes know what they're dealing with. I think tardive dyskinesia has gotten a little bit more press right now because people will see medications advertised on TV. But things like akathisia, dystonic reactions, all this kind of stuff that can be very troubling for patients. And as I said, I got the chance to experience that myself when I had tried mental health meds many years ago. And so this book really follows my journey to really what led me to take mental health medication, and ultimately through my course of having to find answers for, at the time, what was unknown. It was an unknown sort of movement disorder because I was one of those people who couldn't quite find a diagnosis, and it took quite a bit of time. So, yeah, but in terms of what the general public should know, I'm really hoping to just kind of spread awareness about this stuff and just let people know that, we go to a doctor sometimes and a mental health professional sometimes, oftentimes psychiatrist, and oftentimes we see the pill, we decide to take a pill, but we don't oftentimes question what those side effects are, and so. That's what I wanted people to be aware of is that these things can have some pretty life-altering changes for people.
Yes, absolutely. So, what was this experience like for you to be on mental health medications, number one, and to have the movement disorder? Can you give us a picture of that?
Sure, sure. So this is a really hard thing to describe because it really the best I can kind of compare it to is it's like you've drank 40 cups of coffee and all you want to do is just move. And it's this urge, this feeling to move that you just cannot shake. No matter how hard you try and sit still, no matter how hard you want to go to bed. There were periods, and I talk very much extensively about this in my book. There were periods where I was up for days on end. You cannot sleep. And this goes on, generally speaking, for a lot of people, it's supposed to be something that lasts, okay, a couple of weeks, 6 weeks at most. But for many people, what ends up happening is, and is the case with myself, this can go on for years, months. And so it's this constant, almost people have described it as torture. And I can certainly attest to that. And so, really, in the more acute phase of the disorder, that's when I was, that's when it was mostly affecting me. And what happens with specifically akathisia and to some degree tardive dyskinesia, they go through this sort of waxing and waning period. So, um, it starts off really intense, and then all of a sudden it kind of goes through these mountains, ups and downs and hills. But before any of that sort of can take place and before healing and recovery can take place, people have to know that this is something they have. Um, Mine actually started off as like just what felt like very much anxiety at the time. And it wasn't until I got further along and really tried to just stop all medications that this ended up happening. And that's how a lot of people find out about this stuff. They decide to stop medications or they decide to not go the medication route. And that's when a lot of these things pop up. Or it'll happen when you're first starting a medication, if there's an increase in medication. Um, and so, going back to your point too of what the general public really should know about this, I really am an advocate as a therapist now, and as a talk therapist, I'm really an advocate for talk therapy as a first line of defense and letting medication really be for severe cases that just cannot be controlled with talk therapy.
I love that. I love that you're for that. I was diagnosed with depression in high school and then manic depression in my college years. And even throughout my, elementary, middle school, well, I'd say in middle school years, I was always being referred to the counselors and, because of my behavioral issues as a student. And throughout my whole experience, like I've had counselors, psychologists, psychotherapists, etc. And in my personal experience, I believe that the people that helped me the most and that I had the most pleasant experience with and that I wanted to continue seeing were the people that did not heavily rely on medication. In fact, my favorite one was a counselor, and she could not prescribe medication at all. And they talked to me and they talked through my issues, my problems, and I had a space. I mean, this is dealing with the root causes, when you do things like talk therapy and in my line of work it's nutrition and herbalism and things like that. So what do doctors in the medical community have to say about all this and the things we do? Are there ever accusations of pseudoscience that you hear about?
Yes, yes. Actually, this is one of the big points of contention in my book. So, when I was following my journey, if you follow my journey in the book, really, what ended up happening was so many doctors really just didn't believe me, or didn't know, or just weren't aware. Not every psychiatrist or neurologist is able to sort of pick up on something like this. Um, you know, eh, Whenever I have to see a new doctor these days, and have to explain this condition to them, because it doesn't just end with the original sort of pills that were I was placed on. Whenever I have to explain this to somebody, I always get that sort of eye roll of, oh, you're going to be one of those difficult patients, or you're going to be one of those patients who is going to be a problem or not want to take the medication. And I think there's in our society right now, at least in the US, um, there is a big sort of push from the pharma industry, doctors to sort of take pills to sort of, oh, if there's a problem, just take a pill and that's going to solve it. And, talking about side effects and talking about the dangers of side effects, um, are very rarely discussed, or they're almost sort of minimized. And at least that's been my experience and many of my patients' experience when they're trying to start medication. And I do want to just make it very clear, I'm not anti-medication. I do believe to some degree we do need medicine. I think we're all going to need some medicine at some point for various things, but using that with caution and using it at discretion when other things haven't been when other things haven't been working. Um, but so often when most of when I've talked to other people with akathisia or tardive dyskinesia, and I work with both of them, um, or just even in my own personal journey, what ends up happening is, they go to doctors who kind of want to brush this stuff off. And, we have enough research, we have enough data now, which is always the frustrating part because the data, the research is out there that says, you know, this stuff is, and it does exist. If you were to open up a copy of the Diagnostic and Statistics Manual, which is the book that we use to sort of make a diagnosis, they're both listed in there. I think the trouble that people kind of run into is that oftentimes with a lot of these movement disorders, they don't have a very um, there's not like one specific sort of like, okay, this is the only thing that happens to you. And a lot of people start to get like tics, for example. I personally developed a tic disorder through this because, which, isn't something that's supposed to happen with some of this stuff. All sorts of other things that have happened. And so there is, well, I think doctors do at least recognize it, or it's getting better with the at least with some of the movement disorder. Um, Unfortunately, how it presents and people's presentation with it is the hard thing that's still having to educate people on. I'm constantly having to educate doctors. I'm constantly having to educate people on just what this is. Um, just for my own health too, and for my own, just to make sure I'm getting the proper care at the end of the day. And so, and in terms of even not this goes well beyond, just the medical community, but during the time of this ordeal, friends, family, and even to this day, friends, and certain family. They don't quite understand what this is, what this is like and how this sort of impacts. And there's just a very easy sort of, it's very easy to sort of push this into a category of, oh, well, that's just all in your head. This is all somatic. This is all just in your head. Um, I have been very fortunate, and I know many people with movement disorders have not, or medication-induced movement disorders. I've been very fortunate to find some doctors who truly understand the exact nature of this and understand exactly like how to, what we're dealing with and the best course of action kind of moving forward. And I count my blessings every day for that because unfortunately, there are so many people who have to go through multitudes of doctors to find um, proper treatment. And I should just say, really, this is another reason why I wanted to educate people. There's very little in the way for treatment for these things. So it's kind of like once you have this, there's not much they can do other than let sort of time do its thing. And just with regards to myself and, others, the big element of this is time at the end of the day. And so that's why it's even more important for people to be aware if you're going to take medication for mental health, that you really be mindful of what you're signing up for.
Yes. And a lot of the side effects that they might not experience in the beginning, they can begin to develop. And sometimes the gradual onset of these symptoms can cause the connection to be elusive to both professionals, medical professionals, and to the person who is suffering. Now,
Absolutely.
I know you mentioned that you're not anti-medication, but you do believe that there is a basically a time and space for it, and it shouldn't be the first go-to. And absolutely, that's absolutely what I believe as well as a holistic healer. Now, what is your opinion of? I know there's, we can't, make a blanket statement, but what is your opinion of, let's say, the majority of doctors? What is your opinion of them? Do you trust them? And if, of course, there's always exceptions. We're not going to label every single doctor like, in one way or anything.
Sure. Um, I think doctors are taught first and foremost, and again, generalization here, but and I've gotten to see some of the exceptions to this rule. Doctors are generally taught first and foremost to look at the data and look at the research. Um, and so it becomes a very much a um, if it doesn't exist on a piece of paper or in the data or in the research, then it must be something else, or it must be out of my realm. Um, I think, unfortunately, doctors oftentimes get trained to kind of just look at data, statistics, facts, and kind of, 1 plus 1 should equal 2. What happens when that doesn't happen, though? And that's where I think we run into a lot of problems. I will say that in my experience with this, you know, the doctors that ended up really ultimately being the best doctors for me weren't the ones who knew everything. They flat out admitted to me, like, listen, we don't know everything. We're kind of learning this too. Um, and we're trying to figure this out as well. So this is a process we're both trying to figure out. But when they were able to listen, when they were able to sort of hear me and not just sort of push me aside as saying, oh, okay, well, you're going to be one of these kind of people. Um, those were the doctors I connected with the most, because so oftentimes I think people go to their doctors and, you know, they don't talk about these things. They're afraid of their doctors. They're afraid to ask questions. They're afraid to. I can't tell you how many patients I've had to educate on just basics about certain things that they're on. And this goes from, a common thing like a blood pressure pill to, more serious pills. And so there needs to be a lot more. Um, I really think doctors need to be trained to be people at the end of the day. You might have the intelligence to be a doctor, but do you have the people skills, the EQ, right? And I think that's the hard thing for people. In terms of my trust level with doctors, it is very hard. I would say that every time I even have to go to see a new doctor, and I do try to keep my health as good as possible these days and try to do as many things holistically as possible, as many things, all the good stuff, eating right, working out, mindfulness, meditation. I try very much to go that route with things. But when I do have to see a new doctor, I would be lying if I am not brought back to that moment when I had to see some of these doctors during this movement disorder, and it ultimately it ultimately kind of I hate to use the word trauma. I think it gets a little bit abused sometimes, but it does kind of bring back those moments. Even when I have to start a new pill, it brings me back to those moments of like, what is this going to do to me? And so I try to work with doctors as best as I can. I think I've been to enough of them now to say, listen, if you're not going to work with me, then I'm out of here. And I think that's something for every patient to be aware of. We are not enough of a patient advocate for ourselves oftentimes. Don't be afraid to be that pain in the ass. Don't be afraid to be that patient who is calling. We need to get um, answers. We need to be, hold our doctors accountable. And I would ask nothing less than, that of my patients. When I'm very transparent with my patients, I expect the same level of transparency from them. I want them to call. I want them to ask questions. If they're not understanding homework, or they're not understanding, something we talked about, or they need to chat a little further. Um, that's kind of what we sign up for with anybody who's in the medical field. And I think that oftentimes gets forgotten.
Absolutely. So I know you have a new book. And so are you hoping that doctors will will read your book? Did you have them in mind primarily, or can you explain more about that?
Sure, sure. So when I wrote this book, actually, I never intended to tell this story. This was something that I thought was really going to go to the grave with me, and something that I would probably just, some friends, some family knowing, and I wouldn't really discuss it. It was one of my friends and my partner who really encouraged me to sort of push forward with this and say, you've got a story here that people need to hear. I never wrote it with the intention of doctors in mind. In fact, I didn't know who might be interested in this book when I first started to write it. But I will say that I am hoping doctors will read my book. I know that um, my doctors, as well as other doctors, have read the book, and I've really been just very. It gives me hope with some of the feedback that I've gotten that okay, they're hearing my message, they're hearing what I have to say, but I wanted this book to be really a cautionary tale for anybody who's going through any sort of medical trauma, because oftentimes it's that being in that state of not being believed and not having answers and feeling like you have, what where do you turn? And so that was really this journey for me in writing this book, was trying to convey that to individuals and help people, not just individuals with um, not just individuals with medical issues, but just everyone else. I mean, you know, at some point in everyone's life, we're going to encounter somebody who's going through a medical issue that we might not understand. And there's a lot of hopelessness that we can feel. There's a lot of just we don't know what to say to people. And so I kind of wanted this to be a book for everyone to really sort of latch on to and say, hey, how do we start to approach this differently? How do we start to approach medical stuff a little bit differently? And how do we start to have compassion for others? How do we start to engage in that conversation of compassion for individuals? Um, I'll tell you, one of my doctors that I worked with, and I mentioned this in my book, Unstill. It's when I was going through this ordeal, the first, as everybody does when they're going through something they don't understand, I did tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of research to try and figure out what was going on as best as I could at the time. And by the time I finally ended up seeing a movement specialist who was able to officially kind of put the pieces together, and I told him about my research that I had done. He's like, "You should have an honorary doctorate in neurology. You know a little bit more than most neurologists I've come across." And so, not to toot my own horn, but that's where I go back to this idea of patient advocacy and advocating for ourselves. And also, my hope with this book is, for any doctors who do read it, I hope it will give them a better sense of the patient experience, so that they can really understand, how even small things they say or do can really impact, um, the treatment and the care and what ultimately ends up becoming the outcomes for patients.
Yes, absolutely. Mindset and words are so powerful. Um, okay, so it's very interesting everything you're saying. Because of everything that you've been through, you are most likely managing your own patients in a very different and possibly new way than the conventional ways. So, can you explain more about that?
Sure, sure. Um, so, as a therapist, I think I'm very sensitive to the understanding that when people are coming to me, there's a lot of feelings inside of them. There's a lot of stuff going on inside of them that they're not able to process through. And so I am very mindful to respect that. And I kind of see, therapy as a sort of, it's a gift. It's a really a gift for me to be able to hold space for somebody um, who is trusting me with their care on some level. And so I always acknowledge that just in myself when people are coming to see me, you know, because of this movement disorder, and because of what has happened to me, I have made it my own mission to kind of assess people and make sure that, like, hey, like, I want to know what medication you're on. I want to know what the other doctors are doing to you. I want to have that collaborative care with your psychiatrist, and I make sure to talk with them. And to talk to the psychiatrist about what I'm seeing on my end, because a psychiatrist might see somebody once every couple of months. I'm seeing somebody once a week, and I want to be able to fill them in on things as well. But I after having a movement disorder and having to deal with this, I am very much now making sure that my patients are aware of this. And so when I'm talking to people who are saying, "Oh, I'm thinking of starting a medication," I try to educate them on this stuff and say, "Hey, this is what you might be signing up for if you really want to go down this road," and trying to give them a fuller picture of what medication looks like, as opposed to just, um, okay, well, go talk to your psychiatrist, try this pill, and let's see what happens. Um, I think people need a little bit more understanding of that, and I think they need to understand that this is not just a pill you put in your body. And we see this with all sorts of medications, right? This isn't just limited to mental health medications. This is something that spans all sorts of medications. So I'd say the biggest way I'm working with my patients differently is I'm really just I'm teaching them to be a patient advocate. I'm teaching them to understand what the medications they're on and the risk and the cost, to taking some of them. And I'm really trying to be that compassionate soul that they need in that moment. Because I know so oftentimes that people in their lives, or people in their, their other medical professionals, that they're not always being heard.
That's beautiful. And I everything that you described sounds like that's what every good therapist should do. And I would expect that, you know, if I were to look at the medical field favorably, I would expect that that's the experience that everyone would receive.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that it's not. And hopefully, books like yours and conversations like the ones that we're having, as well as experiences like yours and the way that you have overcome them, that these will all be, like bricks to build up that a new way, and really intuitively it's like that should have been the way. It's amazing how far we've gotten with medical and healthcare these days.
Yeah, I think there was a point when it was very much like that, or it started with that intention, but it kind of just veered off. And obviously this is a much bigger issue, right? We're talking about healthcare. We're talking about the pharmaceutical industry, doctors, the way doctors are being trained, the way patient care is going, the amount of doctors, and so it's there's no one easy fix to this problem. But I think if everybody starts doing their part little by little, that's how we get to a resolution on some of this.
Yes, absolutely. um okay, now you are such an open person. And I know a lot of healers, I share a lot. Transparency is very good, but there's some places that I don't want to go personally. I will go there if I have to, but it sounds like you've written it out in a book, which is quite the opposite of what, I and many other healers would do. So, why did you choose to be as open as you are? And how do you feel that's affected your practice and your relationships with the people that you are helping?
Um, so it was this was a therapy journey for me to write this book. This book really was bearing my soul to the world. And when I when I decided to do this, I had no idea the journey I was about to take, because I thought, oh, okay, I'll put a few stories out there, I'll put it into a book, and that'll be that. And then after working with some really phenomenal editors, and them pushing me to go deeper, I just, talk about, having to work through this stuff for the world to see. I did think about my patients and my practice as I went through this experience, and and as I was writing this book, and how they might interpret it, and do I really want my patients to know this part of me? Because the book doesn't just start with the movement issues. I really go from like pretty much being born till present. It's not a full autobiography. It does really primarily focus on the movement disorders, but like there's a lot of stuff in here people are probably not sharing with their patients. But the thing I kept telling myself as I was going through this process, if I can't be genuine and truthful about who I am, how can I teach others? How can I encourage others to be their genuine self? How can I encourage others to be a genuine version of themselves when I'm not being that version myself? And this is a part of who I am, and this is a part of what I do, and this is a piece of me. And um, I have told my patients who, patients will they will Google me, and they will see things or videos or other podcasts and things I've done. And I said, listen, this is your time. This is your the space for therapy. I'm not going to die. I'm not going to get into a conversation about my book. Um, but if you'd like to read it, it's out there. I hope it helps you. I hope it helps as it helps. I hope it helps you the way it will help other people. Um, but I think the biggest reason, or the big thing, in kind of letting down the brick wall and sort of just going for it with this book, was to say, how do I teach people to be genuine if I can't do that myself?
That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Another thing about your book is I know that it starts in a very strange way, talking about your rear end. So, can you
Yes.
tell why? Why? And how has this affected your life that you talk, you've published this?
um, I'm I've fought with just about every editor on this one, and it's so I wanted to start the book off with something very engaging, something very that would capture people, and I won't spoil anything by mentioning the story. It's at the top of the book, but basically, I it starts with a fungal infection in my rear end, and just having to go through the experience of having a fungal infection in your rear end. Um, and I tend to be a bit of a graphic writer, so I wasn't going to hold back on this one. Um, I wanted to use that as a point to kind of like set people up for the story, and also as you progress through the story, I do come back to that fungal infection later on in the book to help people understand why that was such a big ordeal. Because unfortunately, with medication-induced movement disorders, it doesn't just stop with the medication that you've taken. Um, with a fungal infection, who knows what kind of stuff I would have had to go on for that, and how that would have affected my current medication routine. And so that's where I was trying to set it up sort of light so that by the time you got to this other point in the book, you kind of understood like, oh, like this is a little bit deeper than just this, no pun intended. Um, but and I also wanted to really capture people's interest. Part of what I love about writing and part of what I like about being a writer is really trying to capture people, because you've only got like 10 seconds in a book. I think you got like 10 pages if you're lucky, to really capture a reader and to sort of engage them in the process. And so I really wanted to bring them into the experience of what is it like to be on edge every day of your life. And I wanted to start right with that. And I tend to like to write lighter stuff too and funny. And I wanna push the buttons.
That's awesome. There's a I think healers, they have no problem talking about butts and bowel movements and phlegm and all these things. I love having other friends who are healers and doctors and things because I can just tell them anything.
Yep. We hear it all and we
Yep.
talk about it all.
There's It's not an issue at all. Um all right. So what is the the main thing, as we close here. Well, first, I showed your website, at the beginning, and so that's at lennygallo.com/unstill,
Hmm.
LENNYGALLO.com. And then you could just go there, or you could, if you want to go straight to your book, you could put the word unstill, UNSTILL. And this is a very enjoyable conversation that I've had today. I've been looking forward to speaking with you for, I think, a few weeks now. Like, we scheduled
Yeah, we
this
tried to
a
set this
while
up a while
ago.
back. Yeah.
This is just the time that worked. So I think this is I think this would be a great way to close this conversation. Is, what are you hoping that people will take away from your story?
So, if listen, I'm hoping people will read the book to better understand this and to better understand medication-induced movement disorders. And thank you for mentioning my website with Unstill. Um, the big thing I guess I want people to take away from this is learning how to be a patient advocate. Really, it's about patient advocacy. And don't be afraid to talk to your doctors. Don't be afraid to ask questions. If you're working with a doctor that you don't like or who's not understanding you, don't stick around there. Find another doctor. Unfortunately, the way healthcare works in our current system, at least in the US, is you sometimes have to, go through a couple doctors before you find the one that you connect with. So really find a doctor that you can connect with and that will hear you. And also ask them, what's your policies on side effects? What's your phone call policy? Am I going to have to wait, 3 days before I hear back from you about something? um, we don't want to just send everybody to the emergency room, right? That's not the answer either. And so find doctors who are willing to work with you, willing to listen to you, willing to hear your story, willing to help you put the pieces together. And that goes beyond mental health, but for anything people are going through. Make sure you find those people out there. And I hope that as people read my book, it will help make them just much more aware of anyone who's going through a medical issue, really anybody who's going through any sort of medical issue, because I'm hoping this will give people an opportunity to see what happens when you get a chance to be in someone else's shoes. And that's what I wanted to create for people. So I really hope people will just take those things away from this.
That's beautiful, beautiful and awesome. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for the way you serve humanity. I do believe we're talking, before this show, and or maybe it was at the beginning, I don't remember, but I do believe that your experiences are a blessing, and it didn't seem like that in the beginning, but they obviously are now because of everything that you've been able to accomplish and the ways that you've been able to help people because of them. And so, well, thank you so much for
Thank you,
being here.
Mayim. That
And
was wonderful being here. I always appreciate doing these.
okay, do you have an audio version of your book, by the way?
I do. I do. So it's available at my website, lennygallo.com/unstill. You can go to Amazon, Audible, certainly has copies of it, or Apple. It's available on basically anywhere you find books, you should be able to find it.
Perfect. Okay. Well, have a great rest of the week. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank
And
you so
thank you
much.
again.
All right.
Hi everyone, my name is Ashley Algar and I am the host of Expertise TV, and I'm very excited to be introducing you to our guest today, Mayim Vega. Now, Mayim Vega is a former NASA computer scientist turned holistic healer after facing a very personal health crisis, which the modern medical system could not resolve. In 2009, she founded Arukah.com, which offers an holistic healer certification program focusing on three pillars: naturopathic herbalism, holistic life coaching, and online business and marketing to empower people to become holistic healers and achieve maximum impact in the world. Mayim combines her scientific background, natural healing methods, and faith in the creator and great physician to guide others on a path to personal and professional well-being. Mayim, it's clear that you are very passionate about the topic of holistic health. and particularly helping people who are wanting to transition into this approach. How did you find yourself in this line of work, and why is this work so important to you?
Thank you, Ashley, for taking the time to speak with me. And I'd love to answer that question. So, the way I found myself in this line of work starts with my story of when I transitioned from becoming a computer scientist at the NASA Ames Research Center to becoming an entrepreneur and building my first online business in digital marketing. And the reason why I did that is so that I could stay at home and be with my newly born son at the time. And now I have 7 children of my own, and I always wanted to homeschool them and just be there for them. And so that's why I became an entrepreneur. But my first few years as an entrepreneur was extremely difficult. And I thought it was healthy, but later on, after all my studies, I realized there were a lot of things that I was doing that was not very healthy. They were not very healthy habits that I had. And what ended up happening was I got really sick and I thought I was on my deathbed. And I was rushed to the emergency room. And the doctor actually thought that I had a brain tumor. But after extensive testing and examination, she told me that there was nothing wrong with me. I just, I was experiencing a lot of pain, but they had nothing for me. There was nothing they could do for me. She said that she could give me some really strong painkillers, but that's really it. She couldn't really get rid of the problem. And so I took the painkillers, but again, painkillers and any pharmaceutical drug never address the root cause of illness and disease. And that's exactly why this line of work is so important to me and why I went on my own personal journey to become a holistic healer, to study nutrition, herbalism, holistic health, and holistic life coaching, is because we all know people, and maybe probably even ourselves, who, just like me, went to the modern medical system because that's the expected thing to do. That's a normal thing to do. And, tried to get health and healing that way, but hit a dead end, hit a brick wall, and we either got medications that didn't work or that only worked for a while, or that caused side effects that were so terrible that we had to get on other medications, plural, and maybe even the medication or medications caused side effects that caused other health issues. And sometimes the health issues are worse than the first problem that you originally had. And we're on this ridiculous roller coaster of drug after treatment after procedure, because the modern medical system never addresses the root cause. And medical professionals who have woken up know this. And that's why I have medical professionals in my program, including, doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners, medical technicians, etc., who are learning from me, who are, taking the certification program because they realize that our system is broken and we need to fix it. It is our destiny as humanity to overcome all this nonsense, really. We can do better and we will do better. I know it. And that's why, in my certification program, sometimes I joke around. No, it's not really a joke, but I say, I'm empowering not just holistic healers, but holistic warriors. We're in a battle. We're in a battle over our own health and healing to safeguard and protect that, and that of our families and friends and community, of course, as well. And we're also in a battle against very powerful people who, because of profits, like to suppress holistic health and healing truths to keep us just sick enough so that we need something, pharmaceuticals, but not well enough to ever get off them. That is truly the goal of big pharma, of the pharmaceutical industry. It's not true. They don't want to heal us. They don't want to cure us. They want to keep us just sick enough so that we keep giving them our money. And you know what? Me personally, I have better things to spend with my money, like on good food, clean herbs, things that don't cause these ridiculous side effects that we experience with pharmaceutical drugs.
Thank you, Mayim. So that brings me to my next question. What are some of the key benefits of transitioning from the conventional healing approach to a holistic approach in health and healing?
Okay, so that's another really great and important question. The key benefits of transitioning from conventional healing to a holistic approach are, right now, I can think of three main reasons. Number one, the holistic approach is safer. Number two, the holistic approach is more effective. And number three, the holistic approach is the true approach that gets to the root cause. Okay. Now, I'd like to illustrate the first point, the safety of holistic medicine. If someone who was taking some, let's say blood pressure medication or something like that, visited me at my house, let's say I invited them over for dinner, and let's say they had to take some of their medicine and they dropped one of their pills, right, in my dining room or in my living room floor. Now, I have very small children. I have a 4-year-old. And what if my 4-year-old found that pill on the floor and thought it was candy or something like that and put it in her mouth and ate it? What would happen? I would immediately have to call the poison control center to get that pill out of her system, because those pills can have deadly side effects. But what if someone dropped a vitamin C pill or a tincture, and one of my children found it? For the most part, if they found it and took it, they might have a little diarrhea. It might be really spicy on their tongue, and so they would stop taking it. But no, I wouldn't have to control the poison control center, because vitamins and herbs and minerals are extremely, like 1,000 times safer than pharmaceutical drugs. There's a few types of, supplements that you might have to call the poison control center, but for the most part, no, you won't have to do that, because our body knows how to work with those substances. It is not a drug. It is a healing tool. Okay. So completely safe. Also, exercise, diet, those are all safe, right? Sleep, those are all part of holistic health and healing. Completely safe, zero side effects. Now, let's talk about the effectiveness. The holistic approach is more effective. And the reason why we know this is because in my practice, and this is the experience of many holistic healers, when it comes to the conventional ways with the pharmaceutical drugs, as I said before, they don't deal with the root cause. They just mask symptoms. So, you might take a cough suppressant, let's say, for example, but if you are not dealing with the root cause, why are you coughing in the first place? Why do you have allergies? Why do you have the flu, etc.? Why is your immune system not strong enough to overcome this in just a few hours or just a day or two, overnight? Why? Because you have not built up your immune system. You haven't boosted it or live the kind of life that you need to in order to avoid those common illnesses altogether. I have one of my students is a medical doctor, and she said that she used to take anti-allergy drugs every single week because of her allergies. The allergy drugs don't boost your immune system. They just suppress it. They just oppress your allergy symptoms. But when you have allergy symptoms, it's your body talking to you and telling you, hey, I can't deal with this. I can't deal with this thing that you're eating or this environment that you've just stepped into. because of my state of being. I'm not strong enough. That's what your immune system is saying to you. But I taught her a really powerful vitamin protocol that actually boosts your immune system so that your immune system is strong enough to overcome allergies. And so that's the difference. It is effective because it is true. It is true holistic health and healing because it strengthens your immune system. It doesn't silence it, like I said before. And the third issue is the root cause. Holistic health and healing deals with the root cause, and the conventional approach of drugs and surgery, etc., does not. That doesn't mean that you sometimes don't need surgery, for example, or in an emergency situation need a drug, but you're not dealing with the root cause. And if you deal with the root cause, you can make your problems either go away or become extremely minimal, safely, effectively, and naturally without poisoning your body and causing the roller coaster of side effects.
Mayim, you have developed an incredible program that you've already mentioned called the Arukah Holistic Healer Certification Program, which you have specifically created for those looking to either transition into the holistic approach or for those who are wanting to grow in their knowledge and practice. Can you talk us through what differentiates this program from other similar programs that are currently out there?
Thank you, Ashley. Yes, the certification program at arukah.com is really, truly incredible. And there's a few things that set it apart, actually, many things, but I'd like to focus on a few. And one of them is that when I designed the program, I designed it for someone who was in my situation many years ago, someone who was a busy mom who had a lot of work to do and, a lot of things on her plate, but still wanted to empower herself with the knowledge of holistic health and healing for herself, for her family, so she could take care of her family, and maybe even build a career where, very specifically, she could stay at home and, just like me, be a stay-at-home mom. And, even a homeschool mom. I've been a homeschool mom. My oldest is 20 now, and I homeschooled him the whole way. And he's already graduated college, and he's got a computer science degree, and he's an entrepreneur himself. I instilled that dream in him. So being able to, I was able to surpass my income at NASA, and still homeschool my children. It's pretty awesome achievement. And so I wanted to empower people in my program to do exactly the same as I've done, to become a holistic healer, to have a successful online business so that they can have time freedom, location freedom, and financial freedom, meaning that there's no glass ceiling. No one who you need to get a raise from. You just have to help people. That's how I get paid, is when I help people, right? And so that's one of the advantages. Another advantage is it's very hands-on and apprenticeship based. And you could go to a college to study to become a naturopathic doctor, or another holistic professional like a chiropractor. But it's going to take a lot more money, and a lot more time as well. This program can be completed in 1 year, but because, all of my students pretty much are busy professionals already, or busy moms, it's self-paced. So, if you have a lot of things on your plate, it's okay. It's still going to be there for you. There's not like a time limit. You're not going to, your grade's not going to be lowered because you submit an assignment late or anything like that. It's self-paced. And so I've designed it for the busy mom, or the working woman. And another thing that sets it apart is we have three core pillars in our program. One is that our students study naturopathic herbalism. And that takes up the the bulk of our program. And naturopathic herbalism includes studying the foundations of holistic health and healing, identifying toxins and detoxification, also nutrition and orthomolecular nutrition or megadose vitamin therapy, as well as herbalism, which includes also homeopathy and aromatherapy with essential oils. And also they study Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine. But it's mostly focused on Western medicine, Western herbalism, excuse me. And then the next core pillar, the second one, is holistic life coaching. And the reason why holistic life coaching is part of the program is to incorporate the mind spirit aspect of it, right? If herbs and supplements are the alternative to pharmaceutical drugs, well, holistic life coaching is like the holistic alternative to psychiatry. It deals with the mind and the spirit, and spirit has to be part of it because we are spiritual beings. We're not just physical beings. We're also spiritual beings. Now, a lot of holistic health and healing schools are based on, different religions, New Age, or, other pagan religions. And this program, because I'm Jewish, is based on the Creator. It's based on the Bible and biblical principles, Judeo-Christian principles. And so therefore I have a lot of people who are of that faith persuasion, Jews, Christians, or people who maybe, they don't really identify as Jewish or Christian, but they're open to it, or they grew up in that faith. And they don't necessarily want all the new age spirituality. They want the kind of spirituality that they are comfortable with and used to. That's another thing that sets us apart. And life coaching is all about mindset and how to have healthy relationships with yourself, with others. Of course, also, with food and your body and lifestyle. Holistic life coaching encompasses all of that. And it's a very important part of holistic health and healing, especially because stress is often the root cause of many illnesses, common illnesses, and also chronic diseases. So, that mind and spirit aspect is very important. And the third aspect is online business marketing. And again, the reason why that's important is because, as I told you, I really want my students to thrive and to be able to, have that time freedom, location freedom, and financial freedom, which an online business provides. But also because, there's not a lot of jobs for herbalists, or life coaches even. And so we really have to be entrepreneurial. And it's very, very rewarding. And because of my background, with my digital marketing business, my first business, I can really help people in that department.
Thanks so much, Mayim. So I love the power of testimony and hearing people's personal experiences or journeys. Can you share some of the success stories that might be coming to mind or testimonials from past students?
Yes, we certainly have a lot of success stories and testimonials, and we'll show some of those testimonials at the end of our talk today in this video. But I could talk about a few of them that are maybe recent. One of them is one of my students. She told me that she wanted to become a nutritionist, but I guess her life's journey didn't really allow for that. So when she heard about my program, my certification program, when it first launched, she joined, and she really wanted to help her husband, who had been suffering from colitis under the care of doctors for about 20 years, ever since he was in the military. And he was going from medication to medication and, suffering with diarrhea and insomnia and restless legs and indigestion and, all these terrible things that colitis can cause. And so I actually created a custom module for her to help her husband with that. And in 2 months, she helped her husband get off the medication and heal from colitis using food and herbs and natural holistic healing methods. So that was a great accomplishment for her. And I get people, contacting me saying that I helped them grow their hair back, or actually someone said, "Oh, you helped save you helped save a little girl's life." Just beautiful, wonderful things like that. You helped me heal my daughter. You helped me grow, um, regrow my teeth so I don't have pain from cavities anymore. Like just all these wonderful testimonies. And that's the reason why I love doing what I do. And and you will too, if you join the program. It's so rewarding and fulfilling to understand and to know that you are helping people, truly helping people in ways that they can't get in the modern medical system. It's so rewarding.
Incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that, Mayim. I can only imagine the sense of reward when people start applying these principles to their lives and actually see a change and transformation. And for somebody as passionate as you are around this topic, to witness that and to be a part of that, I imagine that the reward is priceless. Another common question that arises is, once someone completes the program, what are some of the practical steps one would take in order to start a successful career in holistic health?
Okay, that's a great question. And that's actually what the third pillar of our program is all about is, what do you do? Practical steps on what you would do to start a successful career in holistic health. And in that program, we teach our students how to create a high ticket transformational health coaching program that really helps people deal with a serious a problem, a serious health issue. And that doesn't mean that it's a deadly, problem, but it can be something that really affects their life, right? Even skin disorders can really affect your life, right? Even though it's not necessarily deadly. Weight loss could be something that is dealing with a serious issue. There's so many different types of health coaching programs that one can make, anxiety, depression, hormonal issues, etc. So they build, it's part of the program. They will do this while they're still in the program, and we'll support them the whole way. Is to build that first high ticket health coaching program, and then set up their online assets such as their website, their social media, a video sales letter, press releases, podcasts, all those things that online entrepreneurs need in order to connect with people, get their message of health and healing out there, and build and grow and scale their business.
Thank you so much, Mayim. It's been so great talking with you today. But before we close, for those that would like to get started on the journey to becoming an holistic healer and wanting to learn a little bit more about the certification program, how do they go about contacting you?
Yes, it's been wonderful talking to you today as well. And for all those who would like to get started on their journey to become a holistic healer and learn more about the certification program, all they need to do is visit the website, www.arukah.com, ARUKAH.com, and dig into that and schedule a discovery call. And I would love to be your mentor, your health coach, your teacher in guiding you to become a holistic healer, to become the healer of your home and your family and your community, and to help you build a profitable online health coaching business.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Mayim. So there we have it, folks. If you are ready to move forward in your own journey of becoming a holistic healer, then you can visit the website at www.arukah.com, where you can schedule your first discovery call. Thanks so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.